Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's AEW Dynamite review show here on the unofficial WWE podcast. Today is Sunday, October 17th, 2021. My name is Mimi Burris, and no, guys, you did not click on this week's Dynamite review show ASMR version. However, it is the wee hours of the morning here, and I have a wonderful fiance that will kill me if I wake her up by doing this, and even more so, if she doesn't, the dog probably will. So, we're going to have to be a little bit quieter on this show. However, we do have a bunch to get into because this episode of Dynamite was packed with a whole lot to talk about, as well as I do want to touch on a few things from Friday Night Rampage because that was a hell of a show as well. So we are going to get into all of it right after this.
I will give you cowboy
Sammy! I've always been the baddest on the block.
I came to AEW to dominate.
Come on, Jeff Perry!
Nobody is going to take this away from me.
All right, guys, I hope you all had a wonderful week this week. And, Wednesday was a little bit sad for me. I posted on Twitter, I thought I was going to get to go home, watch Dynamite, have a nice Wednesday evening into Thursday morning, I guess, and sadly, no, Dynamite was this Saturday, and clearly that puts a big hinge in my schedule because I am very poorly planned, so maybe next week will be different, probably won't, but we will figure it out anyways. But yeah, it was weird going through the week and not having Wednesday night Dynamite, so however, it was absolutely worth the wait watching it tonight. A bunch of awesome stuff went on. But before we get into Dynamite, I do want to touch specifically on that match on the buy-in on Rampage between Bryan Danielson and Minoru Suzuki. If you haven't seen it, stop listening to this podcast, go watch the match, and then come back, of course, because we appreciate you. Speaking of which, I appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. I appreciate you supporting the WWE podcast. If you'd like, we're on Patreon. $1 a month, you get all of these shows completely ad-free. And if Patreon is just like not your thing for some reason, you just don't fuck with it. We also are on iTunes. You can subscribe for I think $2.99 a month and get all of these shows ad-free. And both of those wonderful packages I think include some exclusive shows as well, like Wrestling Nostalgia each week. So it is bang for your buck. If you're not signed up, I don't know what you're doing. It's the place to be. So, all right, guys. As I was saying, though, Minoru Suzuki, Bryan Danielson. Hopefully you listened to my advice if you haven't watched that and you went back and watched it and you're returning now, or if you already watched it and you're just continuously hearing me ramble. I'm glad you're here. This brought me to I'm almost ashamed to admit this, but emotional. My eyes welled up a little bit because I was just so happy to have professional wrestling back. And yeah, call me a mark, call me a nerd, but this match made me feel, and I think that's the main thing, right? There was obviously, weird technical stuff within it. You can poke flaws, this, and that, but to me, this was a 5-star classic because of the way it made me feel. First of all, who would have thought we would have had Minoru Suzuki versus Bryan Danielson, specifically the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And nonetheless, we get it on a buy-in, free on YouTube, technically, before a Friday Night Rampage. Absolutely wild stuff. And yeah, the way that first forearm from Minoru Suzuki that knocked Bryan Danielson down was absolutely I replayed that about 16 times. And then I just finished on with the match. But the way that these guys hit each other was just absolutely unbelievable. I need to break out my thesaurus again, guys, because I can't even find words to describe it. And and the fire up spots from Bryan Danielson were so masterfully done. There is he is holding the title for me right now as the greatest wrestler in the world. The way he's been able to have incredible matches with all types of wrestlers at this point, right? You had Kenny Omega, you had Minoru Suzuki, and Bobby Fish, obviously. That happened tonight or last night on Dynamite, excuse me. Guys, Bryan Danielson becoming all elite was probably the best thing that could have happened for that company at this point. Don't get me wrong, CM Punk, absolutely. But the quality of matches that Bryan Danielson has been putting on has been just like unmatched by anything I've seen in a while. So this was just another tick in that box, absolutely. And a couple other spots that I really like too. The kicking on the ground and how Bryan kept firing up and firing up and firing up again. The way that these guys grappled back and forth, submission back and forth. I mean, especially when Minoru Suzuki had one of those arm bars on, he was like twerking at the wrist. I was getting like, it wasn't like Pete Dunne cringeworthy. It was better. It was like I was just scared for Bryan Danielson's life at that moment. And I felt for Bryan Danielson. I was cheering the babyface. I haven't heard boos and yays or yays and no's or yeses and no's or C's and no's like that in a long time. So the crowd was super into this as well. I think that's a whole nother thing to get, a whole nother thing to think about and talk about. That Rampage is so much better when it's not filmed after a Dynamite. And I don't know, I think Rampage was live this week, and that's why the crowd was so much more into it, if I'm correct. So if I'm wrong about that, then I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I just wanted to make a mention of that match because I would be remiss to not. And the other two matches on the card were fine. Ty Conti versus someone I can't even remember at this point, and Bobby Fish versus Lee Moriarty. Again, you know, I feel bad. I don't mean to disrespect whoever Ty Conti was in the match with. It's just 5 a.m. in the morning, and I have not slept. So we're working on it. But yeah, no. So I was all about that buy-in match, and then the show itself was really great too. I thought the CM Punk match was incredible as always. Thank God he wore the trunks. I thought this was probably his best match yet against Matt Sydal, and you know I really liked the Hobbs match. I think I was in the minority of that, thinking that was better than the Darby Allin match. I think the Daniel Garcia match is kind of hard to compare. But I think this overall was the best match. I mean, some of the spots they called on the fly here, where the crowd was chanting one more time, and then they had that reversal by Matt Sydal. You don't have enough time to call that. That's got to be just pure experience in the ring and two guys who just are veterans at this. So I really enjoyed that match too. And the rest of Rampage as well. So I did just quickly, really, really what I wanted to talk about on this podcast, and we could probably do a whole show on it, was that Minoru Suzuki, Bryan Danielson match. So with all that being said, guys, Rampage was great. Let's get into this episode of Dynamite and continue to petition with me that Zach Smith, our NXT host, should start reviewing Rampage instead or as well, because it's a better show. Subjectively, objectively, all the objectivelies, it is a better show. So, all right. So this week's Dynamite started off with Dante Martin versus Malachi Black. But of course, first we had CM Punk's entrance, joins commentary for the night, and as always, guys, I thought CM Punk, this is probably his best night on commentary for me. He was hilarious with the little remarks he made here and there about Serena Deeb's hair, about how he messed up with Bryan Danielson, calling him Daniel Bryan, and now that I did that, I'm going to mess it up too on the show. But said I'm just going to call him the American Dragon, taking a dig at JR. Just great stuff as always on commentary, but this was probably my favorite. And having just CM Punk, JR, and Excalibur and Tony Schiavone for the most part, not really on commentary from what I remember. At least maybe I just didn't hear from him at all either. I thought it was a really good trio, and when CM Punk is done in the ring, whenever that is going to be, again, his timetable, I don't know. He's already 44, 45, if I'm correct. He's definitely got a career on the commentary booth, and I assume that's probably where he wants to go, but he's really, really good at it. So, anyways, like I said, first match of the night was Dante Martin versus Malachi Black, and I thought this was a really good match. It was not worked exactly how I thought it was going to be worked. I was expecting a much faster paced match. However, I did enjoy this nonetheless. I'm going to be honest though, guys, I was a little let down. I think I was hoping for a cooler Black Mass, like a RKO version of the Black Mass. I don't know. In my head, this is what AEW does to me, guys. I pictured Dante Martin doing a shooting star press and then getting Black Mass from that in the middle. I don't even know how they would pull that off, but I was just fantasy booking a spot that probably is not humanly possible. However, 99% of the stuff Dante Martin does is not humanly possible, including that great springboard onto the stage, the ramp. I thought that was really cool. Some really good leg work by Malachi Black to Dante Martin. Makes sense, obviously. Take out the high flyer. And I thought commentary, like I said, all night, not just CM Punk, did a great job at just narrating a lot of the stuff that all the wrestlers were doing in the ring, but mostly in matches like this one and later on in the show as well. Just talking about just doing a really good job of like, oh, makes sense, like telling the story that's already being told in front of us, so not like repeating it. I can't explain it very well. Doing a really good job of accentuating the story being told in the ring, I think is the best way I can put it. So, there was an amazing kick combo by Malachi Black in this match where he kicked him once in one side of the head and then like did a little quick other kick on the other side of the head to Dante Martin. That was absurd. Dante Martin had some really good fire up spots in this. He does a springboard off of one leg and then gets obviously kicked with the black mass and gets the 1-2-3. Malachi Black takes his time taking the 1-2-3. And then as he leaves the ring, he gives a little bit of a nod to Dante Martin, and I really like that. Shout out to, and of course his name is escaping me, Sean Rossap, for tweeting that, because I had forgotten about that, but I did really like that little nod of respect, because clearly Malachi Black is not a heel, guys. I mean, he is so over, it's ridiculous right now. So those little moments like that, he can just continue to be this like badass baby face, I guess. I don't really know. I know Cody Rhodes himself doesn't believe in heels and baby faces. He thinks you can be a tweener and all this other stuff. But anyways, it was cool to see this match. And in regards to, you know what, I guess we will wait to talk about the Cody Rhodes Malachi Black stuff later on when we get to that weird video that they had on the show. But next up, we had Jurassic Express being interviewed backstage, and essentially just a beatdown from the Super Elite. Another interview, another beatdown. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this, but it was cool to see Jungle Boy later on in the night. So next up, we had Inner Circle making their entrance. Santana gets on the mic, talks about Miami, thanking them for their energy, but is quickly interrupted by Dan Lambert, American Top Team, and the Men of the Year. And Chris Jericho and Dan Lambert go back and forth, or not really go back and forth. Chris Jericho calls him a fat, you know what, again, and then talks about how Paige Van Zant is obsessed with him and is going to slide into his DMs, and he wouldn't touch her with her husband's genitals. And yeah, guys, I don't know. I think this is cheap by Chris Jericho with the comment about who's on top a couple weeks ago, and I think Chris Jericho could do better. And Paige Van Zant could probably kick Jericho's ass. So, just saying, just throwing that out there. But essentially, they challenged them to a 5-on-5 tag match, and Sammy Guevara talks about how he's going to beat them all up, and Dan Lambert calls Jericho fuzzy or something again. And you know, I'm skimming through all this, but this is really over, guys. The crowd is really into this. I don't know. I think I talked about this on my podcast before. I'm not super into this. I thought Junior Dos Santos did not really look great in the ring on Rampage. I've seen worse. He looked better than Cain Velasquez. I'll give him that. But he did, and he took a massive bump with Jake Hager. And they totally missed some spot with Sammy Guevara in that match too. I was upset about that. I really wanted to see what the heck Sammy Guevara did that got such a big pop. But yeah, I don't know. I think the real money here is Chris Jericho and Jorge Masvidal, but I understand why they would do a 5-on-5 rather than, you know, putting Jorge Masvidal in a ring. Not everybody can be as skilled as Bad Bunny was, is all I will say, and have that much training. So, however, the knees, both on Rampage and a couple weeks ago too, looked great from Jorge Masvidal. So, I'm excited to see what he can do. He seems to have the real star power here. So, yeah, and that match on Rampage, I didn't mention at all. It was electric. You know, the crowd was electric, and I think the crowd really carried that match. And Sammy Guevara and the Inner Circle, all of them, even Jake Hager, they're all very over, and so is this whole feud. People, you know, giving the shut the F up chance to Dan Lambert. So, you know, if people are enjoying it, then that's the analysis there. You know what I mean? You don't really need to hear my subjective take on something like that. If it's clearly over and it's clearly working, and honestly, guys, if Junior Dos Santos wrestling a not perfect match, 6-man tag on a Friday night Rampage is going to get views up and is going to get more people watching the product, I'm all for it. I am all for all these things. Get Junior Dos Santos, get Shaq back. Let's find out where the heck he went, because he just disappeared in that ambulance. Get all celebrities and all this stuff in. Whatever's going to draw more eyes on the product, I'm all for it because, I really do believe AEW is the best wrestling product out there right now. So, all right, next up we had the tag team match, the Superanas, aka FTR, versus the Lucha Bros for the AAA Tag Team Championships. And obviously this was FTR coming out in those weird green suits, and CM Punk called it out real quick. I guess I'm losing my touch because I just didn't even notice that until CM Punk said something. But at the end of the day, FTR did get the win with the pinfall with the vertical drop brain buster from Dax Harwood on Rey Fenix. However, there was a distraction from Tully Blanchard, and Dax Harwood was able to hit Rey Fenix with the title belt, AAA title belt, while Rey Fenix was doing a moonsault off the top rope. That bump looked rough as all hell. Nobody can do it like Rey Fenix because he hit it perfectly, took the bump perfectly, and just to add a little insult to injury, I like, again, another moment where commentary was great, CM Punk talking about how he's already knocked out, and Rey Fenix sold it like he already was. So, this match overall was good. It was FTR versus the Lucha Bros, but I don't know. I guess I kind of felt cheaped out. Was I wrong in thinking Andrade was going to wrestle in this match, or didn't just bring a tag team partner, or maybe I guess he was just going to bring any AAA tag team. But FTR versus the Lucha Bros, I feel like should be a way better and bigger deal than this was. I'm sure they will run it back, obviously, but I don't know. There's a lot of match to build match things happening here and there, and I don't know. It seems a little bit lazy to me. However, I'm totally with following this storyline. I'm totally with seeing where this goes. I like the little segment backstage with MJF and Andrade later on. MJF is just a special piece. Just a guy. He's just a good guy to have on your show because he's so good at what he does. So and this match was nothing to, I wasn't blown away. And honestly, guys, I'm getting a little upset that I'm not being blown away by Lucha Bros matches. I was really excited by a couple spots. Like there was obviously the suicide dive and that insane amount of air that Rey Fenix got jumping off the turnbuckle when they both went out to the outside. A couple of other cool spots in this match, but I don't know. I have not seen a match from the Lucha Bros since they've won the titles that has been as good as any match that they had before they won the titles. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, they just haven't been up to par, and I don't know if it's the matches, I don't know if it's the stories being told, I don't know if it's the lack thereof, or the greenness of maybe their opponents, but I'm just, like, this Lucha Bros reign, I really want to have high hopes for it, and they're making it hard for me to do that, so with all that being said, moving on down the line, we had Lio Rush and Dante Martin being interviewed backstage. Lio says that whatever happened tonight was meant to happen, growing pains, and the failure, you need failure to succeed. But Dante Martin knows that if he listens to Lio Rush, everything will be money, and from now on, Dante has a new tag team partner, and his name is Lio Rush. I don't know if Dante Martin's brother is still injured or how long it's going to take for him to get back. But I don't know. I felt sympathy for Dante Martin in this. I felt like young guy kind of getting exploited by this, little dude who's just trying to make money off of his talent. So if that's the feeling I'm supposed to have, if that's the feeling that this was supposed to elicit, I guess it's doing the right thing. So after that, we had Jon Moxley. Well, we had the little segment I talked about with MJF and Andrade backstage. But then we had Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta. And yeah, Jon Moxley essentially came in, kicked the crap out of Wheeler Yuta very viciously, and then pinned him and then left. And guys, I'm telling you, we've been talking about it for a while. I'm loving the slow burn of this heel turn from Jon Moxley. I don't know if anybody watched the GCW championship match against Nick Gage. It was insane, of course, because it was a death match and there was glass and light tubes and all the things that you expect. If you did not watch it, I suggest you go look it up. It was pretty crazy if that is your thing. I'm good with like a little gore like that. Like I'm down with like the shattered glass or whatever. I don't need all of it all the time, but I think they measured this one pretty well. There wasn't nearly as much barbed wire as I expected. So if you hadn't seen that match, go watch that match. Obviously, Nick Gage, GCW, versus Jon Moxley for the GCW World Championship, obviously. And yeah, the whole pay-per-view was pretty good too. You know, Matt Cardona is doing top tier stuff right now. So if you're unfamiliar with what he's doing, or if you're unfamiliar with who he is, Matt Cardona is the former Zack Ryder in WWE, who is just playing this unbelievable despised heel right now. And he was a big part of the show as well, obviously. A special appearance from Mick Foley. However, this is not a GCW review show. This is the Dynamite review show. So, yeah, I'm loving this slow turn. And Wheeler Yuta took the beating great. I'm thinking Jon Moxley. The reason I brought that up, though, is Jon Moxley got booed for most of that match. And obviously, he was facing GCW beloved Nick Gage. But he did a really good job of playing the heel. So, it got me even more excited for what he's going to do in AEW. It looks like from that tournament bracket, guys, and I'll give you my predictions at the end of the show. It looks like Jon Moxley is going to be facing Orange Cassidy in the finals at Full Gear. I don't know why they would do that, considering I don't really care about seeing either of them challenge potentially Hangman Page for the world title. However, don't get me wrong, I want to see Jon Moxley challenge him, but probably later down the line. That's not who I want to be the first challenger. I was really hoping MJF would have been in that tournament. There's a couple other people who I were kind of hoping. I was hoping the tournament was going to be bigger, honestly, but maybe they just don't have enough time until then. So, all right, though, moving on, we had Serena Deeb being interviewed backstage. She says it's only a matter of time before she came back to drag the women's division back to greatness. Before she can finish what she's saying, though, Hikaru Shida just whacks her with something, man, and throws her into the door, and they brawl. And yeah, I'm down. Give me another Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb. This is a women's feud outside of a title. I'm all for it, guys. Just maybe put more than one match on a show, and we could have even more of that going on. So, yeah, Serena Deeb. More of Serena Deeb on my television, more Hikaru Shida on my television, and I know a lot of you agree with that. I talked to a couple of you throughout the week too, and just fawning over Serena Deeb, and Hikaru Shida's got a big fan base out there too, so it's just good to see them on my television, even if it's only for a few seconds. Then we had the 6-man tag, Alex Reynolds, Evil Uno, and John Silver of the Dark Order versus the Super Click, Adam Cole, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson. And yeah, I mean, at the end of this match, the Super Click win by a pinfall with the last shot from Adam Cole on Alex Reynolds. And guys, honestly, I mean, there were a couple cool spots in this match, but this was not my favorite 6-man tag. Great fire-up spot from Johnny Hungy, John Silver, when we came back from break, I thought. And he got the hot tag, obviously, with the double suplex. You know, seeing a little man like that, and I don't mean little, he's probably taller than I am, but just like seeing a smaller guy like that do those feats of strength, it's never not cool, especially in a comeback in a tag team match. So I did enjoy that, and there were obviously a couple awesome high spots. There was a really great chain spot, and I can't remember if it was to Nick Jackson, I think, but I mean, they just went off on him. Crazy, like it was like a super kick into a neck breaker, into a German suplex, into the Evil Uno's finisher. It was wild. So that was really cool. 100%. But otherwise, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what was missing in this match. Maybe it was the length. Honestly, guys, I think it's the rules that are really bugging me, and I'm annoyed with myself because I seem to not be able to get past it. But it's that 5-second rule of being in the ring with all three guys, and sometimes they count it, and most of the time they don't. Like it's not a tag team match; it's just a tornado tag, and if they want to call it that, fine. Like that would change everything for me. But that's not tag team wrestling to me. I don't know if anyone else has this opinion, but it's really starting to bug me in specifically these Young Bucks matches. Somehow the Young Bucks are allowed to get away with just never having that 5-second rule. And that's not the 5-second rule we're talking about with eating something off the ground, right? I don't know. I'm not saying it has to go back to like the classics of only one save and you got to hold on to I do think you should be able to hold on to the tag rope, and that's how you get tags, but I don't know. I would like to see some rules enforced, and it doesn't look like they're going that way, so I will just continue to have to try to get over myself. But for the most part, some really cool spots in this match. I just thought this wasn't the most electrifying 6-man tag I've seen Adam Cole and the Young Bucks, or well, not even just period the Young Bucks put on. I don't know. they have very high expectations. The bar is set very high. So obviously I'm grading on a Dynamite curve here, and I'm grading on a Young Bucks curve, which is a crazy hard curve to be graded on for sure. But I think I like the Mr. Sacco spot too. I thought that was funny. I think it's the rules that are really just bugging me, because objectively this was a great tag match. It's just the 5-second thing that I'll shut up about it, on this show eventually, and I'm sure I will get over it. And maybe it's just, like I said, my WWE brain, or the fact that I haven't been exposed to all kinds of pro wrestling, so I will have to get used to a new way of tag team wrestling. I just don't think I'm used to it yet still. So after the match, Jungle Boy runs down to attack Adam Cole and the Bucks, but they get away, so he ends up putting Brandon Cutler in the snare trap and spraying him with the cold spray. And then we got this weird video package thing from Cody Rhodes and Arn Anderson. So Cody Rhodes and Arn Anderson roll up in one of Cody Rhodes or Arn Anderson's mini trucks, and Cody Rhodes addresses the invisible camera, but doesn't address the odd editing of the whole thing. I just wish he didn't say anything. I'd rather just not have it pointed out and just have it be a vignette. I don't know. So they show up at the Nightmare Factory, and all the trainees are standing there when they open the garage door thing. And the trainees tell Cody off for being late, to call him an arrogant POS, and then Red Velvet slaps the crap out of him, really unnecessary, felt like that was for no reason. And then Cody Rhodes is in the middle of the ring, and they're running drills to try to tighten up his game, but they are go for cheap shots on him or something, and Cody Rhodes says he's not learning anything. But Arn Anderson comes up, tells him that he'll never do anything to let kids down, and does he think that the kids were let down when Dusty Rhodes was putting 30 stitches in Arn Anderson's head, shows him a picture of Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson, Dusty Rhodes and Arn Anderson from back in the day. He says they weren't because he had it coming. He never thought he'd admit that, but he has it coming, and Malachi Black had it coming. So, essentially he's trying to get Cody Rhodes' killer instinct back, but he gets slapped 3 times by different women in this vignette thing. There's weird music. It's very oddly dramatically edited. So again, they address the hidden camera, but they don't address the sound effects and everything they put in it. And just didn't. This one, I liked the dumpster fire one more last week. I thought that hit a lot better. This was weird, and I don't know if Cody Rhodes is just playing this long game that I can't see, or if he's really sticking to his he doesn't believe in heels and baby faces and being stubborn, and he's really letting all this stuff get to his head, or if he is trying to, I really hope, but this is what it feels like right now, and I'm hoping I'm just supposed to feel like this maybe, and then he swerves me and actually goes with the heel turn. But guys, I'm feeling like Cody Rhodes is trying to get sympathy. I mean, why else would he have 5 people slap him and feel like he's being mistreated by his coach and all this stuff? The problem with doing this is once the fans turn on someone, they turn on him. There is not, look at John Cena. The man has done more Make-A-Wishes than anybody else ever, right? Yet the crowd booed the crap out of him. There was nothing. The man is literally visiting sick and terminal ill children in the hospital and giving them their Make-A-Wishes to meet John Cena. And he's still getting booed out of buildings. Because once the crowd decides that they're going to turn on you, they turn on you. And so no matter what Cody Rhodes does to try to regain sympathy or whatever he's doing right now, it's not going to work. In fact, it's just going to make the crowd turn on him more. So I really hope he's just playing some long game that I can't seem to envision here. Again, if you guys have any ideas, you can always tweet me on the Twitter at Mimi Burris. Or, because I'd really like to hear if anybody else maybe sees where this is going, and hopefully it's not going in the direction that I think it's going. But anyways, let's go from something not so great to something really good, and that was MJF on the microphone. He comes out, he comes down to the ring, tells Justin Roberts off for not introducing him for his match against Darby Allin. He's in his ring gear nonetheless too. Tony Schiavone is so I guess he was on commentary for parts of this, but he is just having a fit at commentary about, that it was him who did the beatdown last week. You know what, Tony? There's no proof. And then he calls out Wardlow, who brings out Bryce Remsburg. Ringsburg. I called him, I guess he kind of is a Rings. Okay, brings out Bryce Remsburg, and MJF orders him to count to 10 so he can beat Darby Allin by forfeit. He gets out to like 7 or 6 or something, and then the lights go out, and Sting shows up, comes down with a bat. MJF, because he's a little, you know what, throws Wardlow into the bat. Wardlow gets a nice body shot from Sting, and then Sting tries to coo or call MJF back to the ring, but MJF is a little chicken you-know-what heel, so he acts like he's going down, and he says, no, I'm out, and then leaves. So, yeah, this was great, guys. I mean, furthering the feud with Darby Allin and MJF, that I suppose that match will take place at Full Gear. I'm really into that. I'm really excited in anticipation for more promos from MJF in regards to Darby Allin and the promo battles, specifically because I just don't know how far MJF is going to take it at this point in true MJF fashion, in some way where he can still manage to get away with it. But I'm glad that they're dragging it out more and more, and I'm glad that this is hopefully going to be saved till Full Gear, because this is absolutely a pay-per-view quality main event maybe, if there was a title on the line, but absolutely a pay-per-view quality match. The 2 pillars, 2 out of the 4 pillars, as MJF said himself. So, yeah, I really like this segment. Again, more tension between Wardlow and MJF. That's great. Just some great stuff going on every time. MJF always hits. The man barely misses, and I'm so happy he's out of that feud with Jericho in the Inner Circle, and we're getting to see more of MJF and what he can do with more opponents. If you think about it, guys, he elevated that lower card match with Brian Pillman Jr. to, I mean, yeah, the match wasn't great, and the crowd was really only into it to boo MJF. They really didn't kind of get behind Brian Pillman Jr. much. However, he elevated that match way higher than it had any right to be, especially on the card. So, all right, moving on down the line, we had Tony Schiavone interviewing Anna Jade backstage, and you guys know this is where I got heated if you follow me on the Twitter, because I must have said, I had a moment, man. This drove me nuts. So Anna Jay is backstage getting interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and before she can get a word out, Britt Baker comes in, says that the Super Clique are the greatest faction, calls the Dark Order a bunch of loser, calls her a loser and a follower for being in the Dark Order, and then they start punching each other like professional wrestlers, punching each other, right? Like 2 professional wrestlers. Despite what gender they are professional wrestlers. And then we go back and commentary says, not a commentary, Jim Ross, the old misogynist apparently, Jim Ross, says, an old-fashioned cat fight breaks out. Love a good old-fashioned cat fight. Something like that. Are you kidding me, Jim Ross? Are you kidding me? We are in 2021. This is not Attitude Era. You are not on commentary with the king who can make pervy comments about every woman and treat them like they're a fucking object. A cat fight between 2 professional wrestlers. One who's one of your biggest draws in the company, by the way. So fuck off, Jim Ross. It's not a fucking cat fight. It's 2 professional wrestlers having a brawl backstage, because I didn't hear him calling the Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express backstage. That whole thing, I didn't hear him call that brawl a cat fight. Did you guys? Did I miss that? Because I missed a lot. You guys know I missed a lot. And if he called that, okay, I could say we're talking about equal stuff. I think it's a weird term to use, but are you kidding me, Jim Ross? I'm telling you guys, each week it gets worse and worse for me. I have not heard something like that come out of Excalibur's mouth. He's always a professional. Same with Tony Schiavone. And Jim Ross just seems to not be able to get with the times and realize that, yeah, Britt Baker is one of your biggest draws, you dumbass. It's not a cat fight. Not to mention Anna Jade, who's probably the most improved wrestler, especially with the fact that she's been out so long on injury. But right before she went out from the injury, she was improving immensely. And when she's come back, she looks like a whole different professional wrestler in that ring. So more and more and more, right, fuel to the fire that is this. Do not care about the women's division. The women are less than the men, clearly on the show. We don't care about the women's division. You shouldn't care about the women's division. Please do not invest in the women's division. We're going to put another title in it that's going to be somehow bigger than the world title, because that makes sense. But do not invest in it, because it's just cat fights backstage, guys. You know what? They might as well just have a bra and panties match in the middle of the ring, because that's where we're at. So, Jim Ross, man. I'm done with it, guys. That was my final straw, I think. I think I've been fairly generous. I really feel like we only went at him once, and that was when I had Zach Smith on the show here. Again, please petition for him to be the Rampage host here on the WWE podcast. But yeah, tweet him, at Zach NXT. Maybe he will become at Zach AEW or at Zach Ram, or he could, I don't know. But yeah, no, I really feel like I've been nice for Jim Ross, and I've only made a comment here or there when he's probably deserved it. But otherwise, I've been kind of, I defended him that one time too on this show. But it's not just Jim Ross's fault too, in a way, actually. I should maybe say this, because really, why would he think of it as anything else than a Divas division at this point? Why would he think of it as anything else than a 2000s WWE women's division with bra and panties matches, when AEW doesn't treat them seriously, doesn't book this women's division seriously, doesn't give them nearly the same amount of investment or time as the men do, obviously? Why would he think it was anything else besides a cat fight? So I don't know, maybe because Britt Baker is one of your biggest straws. I'm going to move on, guys, because I'm going to go down the line and I'm going to lose it. But speaking of non-investment and random women's matches, Kiera Hogan versus Penelope Ford. And Penelope Ford got the win by submission with the Muda Lock. Love the finisher. I've talked to you guys about that before. I think Penelope Ford is a great hand in the ring. Love to see her in the ring. But honestly, they just replaced Kiera Hogan here with they replaced Ty Conti and Anna Jade with Ruby Soho here, because Ruby Soho comes down, attacks Anna Jade after the match. The bunny comes down, tries to make the save, but Ruby Soho is challenging both of them, and neither of them won any of it. On Rampage, obviously, they attacked Ruby Soho after the match, replaced Ty Conti with Ruby Soho, and did the whole brass knuck spot again. Literally, it's the same exact feud. It's the same thing that they did. Give me some... nothing new, just the same crap. Oh, probably, yep, because that's your women's division in AEW, guys. I gotta start watching, this new women's division, obviously, or this new women's company, WOW or something with AJ Lee, and there's the other one, Starcade. There's something else I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I know Mickie James has been a big part of it as well, and I just can't think of the name here at 5 a.m. in the morning with no sleep. But I'd love to watch a company that takes women's wrestling seriously, because that would be really cool. Anyways, from something not so good once again to something I really loved, we got a video package from Miro, just talking about how God has forsaken him and what did he do, and he's just depressed because he's lost his TNT championship. More good stuff from Miro. Again, he's just on a new level. Just pleading with God, make him a champion or make him an enemy. But if you stay silent, he'll snap necks under his foot, and everyone will know pain until he becomes champion and sees her once again. He had a great line about something about how his body was made of stone and his neck was made of sand or something like that. Just good stuff. Good stuff. After that, we had, speaking of more good stuff, we had a promo from Hangman Page being interviewed in the ring by Tony Schiavone. But really, he just cuts this amazing promo, talks about what Cowboy You-Know-What is, about how he went home for his new baby boy, new son. Obviously, congratulations once again to Hangman Page and his partner. That's awesome. And he talks about how Cowboy stuff is coming back after he screwed up, or he messed up and he lost against Chris Jericho. Coming back, trying again. Cowboy stuff is, putting his shot on the line for the people who stood by his back, the Dark Order, for that title shot. But at the end says that when you fail, you get back on the horse. That's Cowboy You-Know-What. Despite all that he thinks about himself, we still believe in him. And for the first time in his life, he believes in himself too. And at Full Gear, he's going to give us everything, his blood, his sweat, and he's probably going to be crying. But the one thing he's 100% sure of is he will give us Cowboy You-Know-What. If I were to, I'd probably swear it enough where I'm going to have to do a lot of editing here. But I don't know. I'll chant it in the crowd, guys, but I'm not going to say it on our PG podcast. But yeah, this was an incredible promo. Incredible. So good. And you know why? It's super simple. It was just the story built up to it so well. He just told the story of what's been going on, the last couple of years, so simply. It was such like a well, with all these little tidbits, but a well told story for years between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. And, you know, I have a feeling we all kind of know that Hangman Page is probably going to win the title at Full Gear. I don't care, man. Predictability is not a bad thing when you just want to watch a story, and I guarantee you they're going to get us a near falls in the story of the match. They're going to get us like, oh, Hangman Page isn't going to win, Hangman Page isn't going to win. And I could be wrong. Maybe Kenny Omega wins, and this was all for nothing. But I don't know. I think that this promo was the result of a really well told long term story. You know, AEW is obviously for these long term, drawn out sagas. Some are good, some are not so good, but this has been probably the best story told in the last couple of years in professional wrestling. So this felt like another culmination of all of that, and I really, really love this promo. And last but not least, guys, we had the main event, which was Bobby Fish versus the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And what do you know, guys? Another incredible match with Bryan Danielson, specifically the Avalanche Falcon Arrow from the top rope. That looked rough to take. But in the end, American Dragon, Bryan Danielson wins by submission with a heel hook, just further cementing, right, that this guy can submit you with almost anything. And against an opponent, like, no offense to Bobby Fish, right? But he's a guy, he's a good hand. He won his match, obviously, on the buy-in, so he's not, 3-0. It's 2-1. But he's a guy who can lose and tap out to a heel hook who you don't feel like is, like, losing a lot of credibility. He's, like, the perfect guy to tap out to a submission that isn't necessarily Bryan Danielson's finisher. So I really like the finish of this match. And the grappling, obviously, back and forth again. But this wasn't like I just said in the beginning of the show, it wasn't like your Minoru Suzuki match. It wasn't like your Kenny Omega match. It was a totally different match than both of those. And this was probably the number 3 out of all 3 of them, but it was not bad at all. Great suicide dive. Bryan Danielson still got it. It's just so fun to watch, guys. It is so fun to watch. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this main event. I was surprised it was the main event. I would have thought it might have been opening the match, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe Dante. I don't think Dante Martin and Malachi Black would have main evented. Maybe you put the trios match on the main event. I don't know. Maybe, to me, guys, this show didn't feel like it had a main event, but I almost feel like it did not need it, because there was just a whole load of good wrestling on it. So I really did enjoy overall the entire Dynamite. I know I had some complaints about JR and commentary and the women's division as always, and there were a couple of things that were not incredible. However, for the most part, guys, maybe if they booked that AAA tag team title match, that could have been the main event if they had booked it a little bit better and less random and confusingly. But I believe that they're telling a story there. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt as I normally do, and I've only been burned a couple times, so... They did, at the end of the match, announce the brackets for the number 1 contenders tournament. We had Preston 10 Vance versus Jon Moxley, Orange Cassidy versus Powerhouse Will Hobbs, Dustin Rhodes versus Bryan Danielson, and Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston. And I said at the beginning of the show, too, I thought there were going to be more contenders, I guess. This is like a small tournament, but like I said, I guess they just don't have the time. Full Gear is coming up fast, guys. It's only in November. Probably, I think it's the shortest period in between pay-per-views that AEW has. So my predictions right now, guys, are Jon Moxley goes over Preston Vance. Orange Cassidy goes over Will Hobbs. Bryan Danielson goes over Dustin Rhodes, and I was really stuck on this one, guys, but I'm going to say Eddie Kingston goes over Lance Archer. And then we get Jon Moxley versus we get Jon Moxley versus, Orange Cassidy. So I think Jon Moxley's going to go over there. We get Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston. I think Bryan Danielson goes over there. And I think we get Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson at Full Gear. And yes, I'm cheating a little bit because if you guys saw that picture of Tony Khan with his little written out Full Gear card at the Jaguars game, but I do think this is the plan for Full Gear, and I am super excited to just be along for the ride for it. I don't know what kind of story they're going to tell to get here, but and I know the tournament seems small, and I was just expecting a little bit more, but I love tournaments. I love a good, well told tournament, well booked tournament, and I'm excited to see the stories that come out of it as well. So with all that being said, guys, you know what I'm thinking about? I don't know why I said that at the top of the show. Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page would be incredible. Have Hangman Page go over, too. I just don't think Bryan Danielson would take a loss that quickly, but I don't know. I'm super up for that for his first defense. Actually, I totally take that back. But with all that being said, guys, I know it was a little bit quieter of a show tonight. It was a little bit of a. You guys got my little sick voice too. I'm still been a little bit under the weather, but I appreciate you bearing with me. I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast as always. If you don't like my wonderful morning voice here, you can listen to the NXT podcast with Zach Smith, the SmackDown show with Michael Ritter, the Raw review with Matt, and the Weekend review with Matt and a co-host or a co-host on the Raw review too. We've got a news show. We've got all of the above. Wrestling Nostalgia if you're on Patreon or on subscribed on iTunes. A mailbag where you can send in your thoughts and Matt will answer them. A whole bunch of stuff going on there. So make sure you guys continue to tune in to all of the wonderful co-hosts we have here on the WWE podcast. And with all that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And I guess I'll talk to you around next Saturday because we got another Saturday Night Dynamite. And I'm excited to see what the ratings for this show and Rampage were last night because I enjoyed both shows a lot. But usually that doesn't somehow dictate the ratings. It's funny how that works. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of whenever you're listening to this. And I will talk to you next time.